Welcome back. I'm going to skip the fun introduction and apologise first of all for not uploading a video yesterday. Last week I said we'd start a new routine of an individual review on a Sunday, be it a film or an album, and then box out Wednesdays. But given the week that Europe, especially in the East, has faced, it seemed crass to just celebrate how wonderful Indiana Jones is, or insert here. So I did have something in mind, but you can only take your small stands where you find them. So I changed things up, and to do so I wanted to revisit this, and we are going to have a look at a film today. It's not going to be labelled as the first episode. I think we'll just consider this a standalone. It is Jean Renoir's Grande, Le Grande Illusion, and as you can see, he is considered one of the most haunting of all war films. I don't consider this a war film, as reckless as that may sound, because it's a humanitarian film. A war film has connotations these days in which we find ourselves watching goodies versus baddies, Nazis stomping around with no souls, there to be machine gunned down by our plucky heroes, or maybe a revisionist Vietnam film, or insert battle/war here. Never used to be that way. We had more nuance. You think back to 1930s All Quiet on the Western Front, set in World War One, as this. And this is a humanist take on prisoner of war films. It all takes place. There are no scenes of the actual war itself. Everything that results in Le Grande Illusion is in a POW camp or attempting to escape from a POW camp. Again, you hear that and you'd think Great Escape, wouldn't you? You'd think it's all about the plucky underdogs digging their way out of trouble, and, with their different sets of skills. There's a tiny bit of that in here, but it really doesn't take more than 10 minutes of the film up, and it's all gone by the first half. Directed by the great Jean Renoir, who would go on to make La Relais du Jeu, The Rules of the Game, another wonderful portrait of class and fiddling while Rome burns. The title itself, La Grande Illusion, was first coined in about 1909, I believe, as an expression of the great illusion that war can never be used to solve economic issues, economic woes in a state. But this film doesn't say that as its premise. It presents you with a number of illusions. So our hero is played by Jean Gabin. He is Marechal. And we have Marcel Diallo playing Rosenthal, and the captain is Pierre Frenier, Captain Boldieu, and the commandant, I don't know if that's even the correct term, of the POW camp is played by Erich von Stroheim, great director, of course, of the silent era himself. He made Greed, the film that, if any film was ever cut down by Hollywood, it was Greed. I think it started out 7 hours and ended up coming out at 90 minutes. He plays von Ruffelstein. Now, when you hear that, we see what von Stroheim looks like. Jean Gabin's got these, traditional movie style looks. And they're French, and he's obviously German, and this is World War One. You instantly have these images because we're all conditioned to have them. That this must be, he's evil, they're all good. And what the Grand Illusion, the Great Illusion, challenges you to recognise is that they're all people, and that the Grand Illusion, one of many illusions in the film, the Grand Illusion is that there's any difference between people, whether they be from Germany or from France or from Russia or from the UK or from the Ukraine. And in the film, we see solidarity amongst the classes, even from opposing sides. So an engineer from the Germans befriends Jean Gabin's character, is also an engineer, whereas the French captain is given preferential treatment by von Ruffelstein because he's an old school officer. They are military men. They weren't NCOs. They weren't called up. They were career soldiers. So Renoir paints this picture that class lines do not go like this. Poor, rich. They go like that. Relationships go like that. That we can all find common ground if we look for them. So the richest person in the film is played by Rosenthal, and he is from a very rich Jewish family, and takes some mocking for him. But again, in this line that Renoir draws, he is exactly equal to Jean Gabin's engineer, because they're both prisoners of war. They both have the same treatment. Likewise, the commandant gives the same treatment, preferential treatment, to the captain, or offers it to him. At least the captain would accept it. So at that point, the captain becomes on the same line as his men. There are also other great illusions in the film. I don't want to spoil it because I think this is essential for anyone in any climate, but especially the current one. Another illusion, great illusion, is when a woman expresses that she's lost her entire family to the great so-called battles of the war, and yet two of our characters, instead of staying with her and seeing out the war, recognising that no two men are going to make the difference. Their illusion is that they will make a difference if they go back to the front, even though they've both absconded from POW camps before and been recaptured. They're more likely to just end up as casualties. So there's also the illusion that you personally will be anything more than cannon fodder, which we see earlier on, where the captain sees new recruits being trained by the Germans, while the POWs are all getting ready for a review, a kind of stage review, a show, including drag. And he says, look, boys pretending to be soldiers while we're here soldiers pretending to be children. So there are numerous allusions at play here. And to say this film is influential would be a lie, because Renoir himself said, was asked, you made this great humanitarian film about war, and class, and decency, humanity. How influential do you think it was? And he said, I made it in 1937, and it won all sorts of awards and was a success in America. It was a success in France, the UK, and across Europe, apart from that's Germany and Italy, where it was banned. And 2 years later, the world was at war, or 4 years if you're American. So in that, I completely failed. An interesting way to look at it, isn't it? That he wasn't making a film to make the best film he could make. He was making a film to attempt to do what those two soldiers were doing, to make a difference. Renoir's own grand illusion, if you will. In filmmaking terms, though, it was massively influential. Scenes have been ripped off wholesale. There is a scene in the tunnel when they are trying an escape earlier on, which is almost verbatim taken by The Great Escape for Charles Bronson's character. But even more than that, there's a scene where the French POWs discover that the French army has retaken a town, and it's in the middle of the drag review where they're all dressed as women, and they rip off the wigs and they instantly burst into Le Marseillaise. 4 years later, of course, Casablanca would copy that scene verbatim. I must admit, done a bit better. But what follows is one of the sadder moments, and what makes this such a deep film. For just a fleeting moment after that starting sequence, in which we see Le Marseillaise being sung by these men who see it as a place, a symbol of their resistance, even while stuck in a POW camp. We see the next day or days later, the ground has been retaken by the Germans and it's plastered all over the walls. Again, the grand illusion never ends. Perhaps the most controversial part at the time was the portrayal of everybody as at least human. So von Stroheim, you see him as this fierce-looking commandant, but yet he's thoroughly decent. He is a man of honour, integrity, who was a flying ace, has been shot down, and is now given what he sees as this, like a great cop being put on desk duty. He sees this as almost an insult. He would rather die in battle than see out his days just looking after POWs. And he has a wonderful scene with Bourdieu, Pierre Frenier, who was more of a stage actor, and it shows in his performance, but it's quite apt because he's quite stiff and very, not given to much movement, unlike the more naturalistic Jean Gabin, who was a screen actor, a heartthrob of his day. So when von Stroheim and the Captain Bourdieu, are having a one-on-one conversation, because again, von Stroheim is allowing him to have kind of preferential treatment, giving him cognac and things like that. He expresses that they are both the last of a dying breed, that class is coming tumbling down, and the very rich will remain very rich, but there's going to be very little of three classes, upper, middle, and the workers. Instead, people are going to be able to be upwardly mobile for the first time, which turned out to be true in the West. But again, it's also a great illusion, because you'll be sold that as your reason for working your 50 years towards retirement, that you might make something of yourself. So everyone has a grand illusion in the film. Von Stroheim, again, I can't go into spoilers because I really do want you to watch him, but he also has to do something that he really doesn't want to do, but he knows as an officer he has to do it, and the person that he does it to says it's okay. If I were in your shoes, I would have done exactly the same thing, and I would have respected you less if you hadn't have done. Again, it's this idea that relationships do not go like this. So it's not you're French, I'm German, therefore I'm better, but it's both we are equal because we're men of decency and honour. And why are we fighting? That's the illusion that no one is really prepared to ask. In 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated by Gabriel Princip, and everyone was dragged into World War I slowly. It must have seemed to these people that they were fighting for no real reason, if they really thought about it. They're fighting for empires they've never visited, for leaders they've never heard of in a lot of cases. But today we are witnessing people in Ukraine fighting for their own country, their own land, and many of them in East Ukraine do wish to be part of Russia, but Putin offered them co-citizenship and a chance to move to Russia, but yet has, of course, attempted to annex the Ukraine anyway, until he restores that part of the USSR as was, and has the Baltics to the Black Sea under control again. When that plan was hatched, or at least theorised, in 2014, when he annexed the Crimea, it seemed unthinkable that he would attempt to do so to the rest of the Ukraine. But we are increasingly coming to realise that unthinkable is not in the vocabulary of Vladimir Putin. And perhaps that's our grand illusion, that we have underestimated the need for dictatorship, the need for a legacy of a 69-year-old who grew up being told how Russian empire was the only way. We now live in a world where superpowers have so many nuclear weapons that we can't possibly go to war with Russia on land, because it would mean World War III, and with nuclear weapons that wouldn't last very long. We certainly wouldn't face a 6-year war. we'd be facing a very quick war, which would end in the devastation and destruction of just about every part of the civilized world. So instead, we can but watch as Ukraine, now not being a member of NATO, is under attack, under bombardment, and President Zelensky, who has his own faults, he closed down media outlets that were not friendly to him. He weaponized far-right extremist groups because they were already self-trained with weaponry. But those issues can be dealt with by voters at a ballot box. Zelensky is on the streets of Kiev with his people. Vladimir Putin is not on the front line. Whatever you want to say about Zelensky, he is fighting for Ukraine. Perhaps he's one of the few who doesn't have a grand illusion. Perhaps he's been one of the few realists. And if we can swivel back to the film for a moment, essentially, the grand illusion reminds you that if we all have a more realist and humanist approach, then we would ask ourselves to be rather facile. What's the point in all this fighting? We're fighting for people up there. You can call something like World War II a justified war, but if every German and every ally had refused to fight, it wouldn't have lasted very long, would it? So our own grand illusions are perhaps believing that we're always in the right when we go to war, or that we can make a difference when we protest. So again, these have been ramblings prepared ad hoc because again, it just didn't seem apt to sit here this week and say, I don't know, I'm just looking at films on a shelf now. Isn't Into the Night a great Jeff Goldblum movie? So yeah, I went back and rewatched Grand Illusion. I suggest you do the same, because it will give you a perspective, should you not have seen it, on decency even in the face of horror. Some painted it at the time as idealistic. Renoir was a filmmaker who was the son of a famous painter. If someone's not entitled with that background to be an idealist, I'm not sure who is. But I think if the world had more idealists and less opportunists, then we'd perhaps be in a better place. But maybe that's my own grand illusion coming to the fore. I don't want to do the catchphrases and outros and things, so I'll end it there. These videos going forward, the reviews on Sundays, will be shorter, but this was a time for talking more, for saying perhaps what needed to be said, what can be learned from art and history via art. There's no real way to end this, but perhaps once the illusion is shattered, we can deal with reality. Until then, we stand with Ukraine and the people of Ukraine and the people in Russia who are pawns of Putin, who don't get the truth from a thief and a murderer like Putin, who has taken billions and billions and billions, hundreds of billions, from his own people for personal wealth. So we stand with the Ukrainians against that kind of might, and that's why when you read things like, "Oh, the ruble's been hit," you think, yeah, I don't think Vlad's got his money in the bank just sitting there. No, that's well taken care of. Yeah, I don't think he'll be following the interest rates with too much worry. He's legislated for all this kind of stuff. So sanctions, it's about all we have. We can't send weapons, but please, no thoughts and prayers. As Zelensky said, they have no use for them. A grand illusion again. I'll stop now before I just continue to ramble. War is hell. I don't think anyone here can truly appreciate it until we see, buildings that look like the homes we live in being shelled. Normal people trying to just go about their lives being annexed. They have been giving a referendum in their local regions to, would you like to remain Ukrainian or not? Putting off those who wanted to leave Ukraine the chance to do so, join Russia. But for him to just bring the goose-stepping forces over the borders and tanks and shells, unthinkable. Yeah. Anyway, lots of awkward silences in this one for a change, but sometimes a facade slip, and there's a time for contemplation rather than non-stop chatter, jokes. Maybe that's when the illusion stops. So stay safe regardless. We still face a pandemic even in the face of all this. Try and make the best of your time, but yeah. Seek out the Grande illusion and the films of Jean Renoir in general. You might not be able to end wars with them, but I think you'll learn a little more about yourself and about humanity. History is written by historians, of course, but when it's filtered through the artists, I think we get a more accurate portrayal of people rather than politicians. Again, an illusion. Somehow we've hit the classic half-hour mark. Yeah. These are going to be short, I'm going forward, as I said. But some things are worth a bit of a ramble. Not just because this is one of the great films ever made, but because I've thought of little else all week. Then the good people of Ukraine, the good people of Russia continue to protest, knowing that it may mean that they disappear. We shall see what comes. Box set Wednesdays will not be as somber, but it wouldn't be true to just continue on as though nothing were happening. So I'll see you on Wednesday. We'll be doing music this week. I haven't decided what yet, but rest assured that it won't be some anti-war thing, or it won't be Russian folktales, but we'll find something. We'll find something a bit more easygoing than this half-hour diatribe of misery. But sometimes you have to face the world as it is, and not through great illusions. Take a shot every time I've said illusion in this video. I said I wouldn't do signature sign-offs and opens and things, but I think this one's always apt, so I won't do that. But sincerely, love and mercy. Love and mercy to you, to your friends, and to the world. See you on Wednesday.